Going beyond the headlines. Asking the questions you want answered. Exploring government policies and how they impact you. We are delving deeper.
Good evening, Trinidad and Tobago. Welcome to Delving Deeper. I am Ria Ribchansing, sitting in for Kimberly D'Souza. Joining me this evening, the Minister of Education, Dr. Nyan Gadsby-Dolly. Good evening, Dr. Gadsby-Dolly. Welcome once again to the program.
Good evening, Ria. Thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure. Let's begin with digital transformation. Now, last week, Minister Hasselbackus identified the importance of digital transformation, and Cabinet approved 13 projects under your ministry, namely dealing with e-testing, e-books, and laptops in schools. Can you expand a little bit on this?
Let me first say that the Digital Transformation Program, the document, is available on the ministry's website. And so I encourage all citizens to take a look at that because it is very critical. All of our citizens have a stake in education. We say in the Ministry of Education, it takes a village and everyone is involved. So I'd like everyone to take a chance to look at the document to understand where the ministry is going between 2022 and 2027. The e-testing initiative, that is very critical. CXC is moving towards e-testing. The benefits are myriad. One, cost. I cannot explain to you how costly it is to print exam papers. We have to import them from Barbados and some of them from England as well. We import those. When they are used by the students, we send them back. We have to transport them back. Even within the country, it's armed services to get them from the airport into the ministry. And then, of course, they are the persons employed to pack them away, to arrange them. So it's very expensive to run examinations. And therefore, the concept of e-testing will immediately have a cost reduction associated with that. And also the resilience, what we looked at over COVID, when we had to consider when we were having exams and how we were having exams. There are territories in the region that already do e-testing, and it was a lot easier for them, that resilience built into the system because you didn't have to be physically dealing with all of that arrangement. So e-testing is one of the major things we want to head to. And in January of 2023, we are going to expand our e-testing portfolio. It's going to be on a voluntary basis to integrate more e-testing into the ministry's program. We do have some subjects already that are done that way, but it's a few, and we want to expand that. So that's on the e-testing side. A part of that, of course, is the bring your own device scenario where students can use their own devices to be able to do e-testing. And that feeds right into our laptop and device distribution. It's also important that our students get facility on the devices in doing exams. So what will be used in January would be the pilot with the paper ones, which is the multiple choice, which is a simpler prospect. But if we have to move to the paper two, where you have to actually write or type, students must be very familiar with that. And so that e-testing and the availability of devices, they go hand in hand. Another one of the projects will be digital literacy for the students, because to be able to have that familiarity with the devices, we must ensure that they type efficiently. Many students can type, but when you're speaking about doing it for an exam, it must be something that you're very, very familiar with. You shouldn't have to think about it. And so that's a part of it as well. Two of our most impactful projects will be the IRIS project as well as the SMS. So the IRIS project deals with human resource management, and that's for our entire ministry, but we're focusing now on the teachers. And we are getting them basically digitizing the teacher records. If you've ever seen a teacher file, and you've been a teacher, so you understand the very huge stack of paper where things can easily go missing.
Oh, yes.
And that has a lot of repercussions for salaries, for benefits at the end of your tenure, which is so unfortunate. So we are digitizing that. And it is a huge project. We have over 13,000 teachers, and you can imagine each one of those pieces of paper have to go into a digital format. So there's a lot going on there, but we are, making steady progress on that. And I know our teachers would be very happy for that, because it would mean that we can treat with them in a manner that really befits their service. And so that's one of the things we are focusing on. Another thing is the digitization in a similar manner of student records. You would know the cumulative cards, and you would know that those are physical things that again have to move, and it's really not in line with our current circumstance, and it's not in line with what the public expects of us. Because, for example, to get the students at a particular school at any one point in time, the ministry would have to go to a principal. The ministry should have those records, but that can only come if we digitize our student records. So that has a lot of permutations. It speaks to how we transfer students, and that process can be very protracted. How we transfer students, how examination records are compiled for students, and therefore the kinds of reports you can pull for a school looking at the performance of students, all of this. And some schools already have that in their school system, but as a ministry, we need to be able to have those records and pull those reports at a moment's notice. Even attendance. Think about that fundamental thing that's done on paper generally. So we do have a system that we were using during the pandemic when the schools were online, and we have continued to use that. We've refined it, but we need to now embed that into the system so that at any point in time, we can say, this is the attendance very easily, and we don't have to rely on paper records to do that. So those are two really, really impactful, fundamental projects that we are undertaking now. Ebooks. I think that's one of the big things that people are looking forward to. You would have seen us say last week from the ministry that we are dealing with a freeze almost of the school book list. And that is to allow parents to have an ease with respect to changing textbooks, changing editions, and also the critical matter of the quality of the textbooks that are put onto the book list. That is something that we've been hearing a lot of complaints about and that we need to deal with. So as we deal with these matters, and as we also look to the ebook platform, we have said, okay, just hold with school book lists as they are so that we can introduce now our ebook platform. And we're dealing with that through with iGov, we're dealing with bringing that platform to fruition.
With respect to the ebooks, because I'm quite interested about that, usually the parent would have to go out and purchase these books for the children. How are the ebooks going to work? Is it that it's going to be open for the children to access, or is it something that's going to be on a purchase basis?
So what we are negotiating would be an open access, not fully open, but with access in certain forms to certain books. Because the ebook providers and the publishers, that's a discussion we'll have to have. So the platform will allow us to get ebooks and to use ebooks, but the actual arrangement for the license of the ebook is a different arrangement with the publishers. So the intention would be, and the best case scenario would be, that certain students have access to certain books, and that will attract a certain cost. If it is free and open access, that's a different type of cost. So we have to have those detailed discussions about the ebooks themselves, but the platform allows us the facility to use ebooks. And so that's what we're negotiating at this time.
I think another question that people may have is, you're speaking also of having the exams online as well, through their computers. They can bring their own as well. I'm wondering about security issues if it's your own personal computer that you're using to do those exams on. Have you looked at that, or how you're going to control that? Because if it's a personal computer, they may have, certain information on it that could help them possibly in the exams.
So this is a process that we'll be working with CXC on. Now, CXC already has e-testing going on. Many of the regions, they have e-testing. And so they have software already that deals with how the security features are taken care of. So it basically shuts down the other aspects of the computer and locks it into a certain program so the student can't access what would have been on their computer. So the security features, those are already taken care of, and CXC routinely deals with that. So it really is now for us to incorporate it into our system.
And to implement it into the school system. Now, the ministry has identified 26 schools of focus for which specific guidelines have been published. What are the major areas of focus for these 26 schools?
These schools have been carefully selected. In these schools, there are certain characteristics. indiscipline, student indiscipline. Another one is high absenteeism of the students. Another one would be dilapidation of the schools over time. A lot of them are older schools. Another one would be that the students who come in, the intake at SE would not be the highest performers. Another one would be that the output at the end of Form 5, in most cases, is not as high as it should be. So there are certain characteristics associated with some of our schools. And the focus on these schools is to increase the achievement of the student. That everything that's being done is with that focus. Because at the Ministry of Education, we want to create the citizens that will carry this country on an upward trajectory. And so it is a difficulty for us when many students are coming out as much as 52% without their full certificate, because it means that these citizens, these young citizens, are now underprepared to take their place as productive citizens in our country. And if we don't have productive citizens, everything else will be affected. So the focus on these schools would be to achieve student performance increases. And so we are approaching it on the level of leadership, training for teachers, bringing the principals in to ensure that they have the right type of training as well. The parents, the principals in these schools have also spoken to us about the need to focus on the community, because whatever we do in school, sometimes when the children go home, it negates all the gains that you've made in school. On the curriculum itself, ensuring that these students have a curriculum that they can achieve, that it addresses honestly their deficiencies, because they would have come out of the primary school system without the necessary preparation. So ensuring that the curriculum they face in Form 1 addresses that and brings them up to the required level of literacy and numeracy, ensuring that they are engaged in school. And the principals have told us that the involvement in skills keeps them engaged. Skills, sporting, and VAPA, which would be the visual and performing arts. So ensuring that those programs are robust at the Form 1 level, keep them in school, reduce the attrition. So the emphasis on the students is wide-ranging. It also deals with the student support services, ensuring that we have dedicated officers at these schools, ensuring that we have safety officers, that the community police are involved in the school as well, because we want to add to the atmosphere of safety and security. So it's a number of initiatives that we are rolling out in these 26 schools to be able to increase student achievement and to keep them in school, reduce the attrition.
So you're trying to get a balance between the academics and the arts as well. So you're trying for that balance. Yeah. Is there anything in place? Because you spoke about students who may come into the school who may not be at a certain level and may need remedial teaching, remedial learning. Have you thought or have you put anything in place for something like that? And teachers especially, because you need to have specialized teachers for that.
So in these 26 schools, Form 1 and 2 will be dedicated to preparing students to do their lower secondary proficiency examination. This was formerly called the primary school leaving. So when students did not perform adequately at the SE or the common entrance in those days, they would spend some years in what we used to call post-primary. And those years were dedicated, standard 6 to standard 7, some used to call it. Those years were dedicated to bringing them up to a fundamental level of literacy and numeracy so that they can be able to at least find a proper job, a lower entry job, and they would be able to contribute and take care of themselves. So the lower secondary proficiency examination is that same examination. It covers math, English, social studies, and science. So it gives the student a general knowledge, and the first 2 years of secondary school will be devoted to that. So it's not taking them on the secondary school curriculum. It's giving them 2 years to bring them up to the level of literacy and numeracy that is required. Now, that examination is a certification. It's not a placement exam. It's not the SCA. It's a certification. And that is actually the entry-level qualification for some government jobs. The government recognizes that. And that helps with the attrition, because in some of these schools, the students come into Form 1 at age 14, as opposed to an average student, who may be 11 or 12. So at age 16, compulsory schooling is ended for Trinidad and Tobago. Yeah. So it means that there may be students in Form 2 who have achieved the age of 16, and in some cases they fall away. That's the attrition we're speaking about. So if we do this exam, prepare these students, give them their grounding in literacy and numeracy, and they do this certification in Form 2, even if they leave school after, they have a level of certification that they can use to get a job. And that is what we are trying to achieve. So it's a twofold process, bringing them up in terms of their fundamental literacy and numeracy, and giving them something that they can hold in their hand. So just in case they achieve the age of compulsory education and they leave school, which happens, they have a certification which they can use to gain a job.
Now, there's always the issue, and I love what you're talking about because I think that this needs to get done. But, there's always the issue, especially those parents who think, no, my child is not going to do this. They're going to write over the SEA, or they're going to do this or that or the other. How are you going to address those concerns of those parents as well and try to help them see? Because I know as teachers we do, and it doesn't always work. So how is the Ministry of Education going to try to get on board to help parents say, listen, we need to do this for your child?
One of the ways is to ensure that we explain this system to our parents. And that is why it is important for the principals to meet with the parents to discuss. Now, I can tell you a challenge that principals face in that some parents, you cannot get them on the phone. You can't reach them. Numbers change pretty frequently. And some of the parents you see are the parents you don't need to see because they're already involved in the school. So the principals are going to do their best to reach out to parents and to explain exactly what's happening. And the sad fact is that there are many parents who have absolutely no concern about what's happening in school with their children. And that's a reality, and that precipitates the problem in the first place. So all efforts are going to be made to sensitize parents as to what we are doing. And that's why the document is on the website. And we are pushing students and teachers and parents from the Facebook page, the ministry's Facebook page. Go read the document, go look at it, understand what we are doing, and come on board. Because there is no way that the ministry can do this without parents helping and without parental involvement. So we will do the best we can. Make the document public. We're going to do some sensitization on the Facebook page as well, because a lot of parents, they may not see them in school, but they are on social media. So we're going to try there as well. The principals will try speaking to the parents, explaining what it is. And the system that we are putting in place, that we have put in place, I can't say we have put in place in 26 schools. After they do the lower secondary proficiency exam, when they go into Form 3, there's a chance for them to repeat that if perchance the students did not get the certification. And those students who have to repeat it in Form 3, they have a chance to spend an extra year at secondary school so that they move on, but they have 6 years. And the students who get their certification there, we will now be sure that they have the fundamentals to go on to CSEC subjects. And so they will be attempting the CSEC Math, English, another CSEC subject, as well as 2 CPQs. So at the end of it, we're aiming for them to at least have their full certificate. The CPQs are recognized by the government. And so we are aiming for them to have their full certificate. For some, it may be 6 years. For some, it may be 5. But we are putting the program in place so that they can at least have 5 subjects. The curriculum will be simpler, not as many subjects, because we want them to focus on the essentials. But what will not be sacrificed is their involvement in sport, in performing arts, in the skills, the CPQs which we'll start, and the life skills aspect of it, where the guidance counselors, the school social workers get a chance to interact with them. And what we are also going to do, you would have seen us do it in the Turn-Up Vacation Revision Program. We are also going to make a call to citizens of Trinidad and Tobago who want to come in and to speak to the students in the school, who want to explain to them how their journey was, how they were able to surmount their challenges. We're going to be making a call in the very near future for persons to be able to apply, to come into the schools, speak to our children, so that they will be getting the practical experience of citizens who have made it, a long life path in spite of challenges. Of course, we'll do vetting and ensure that the persons that speak to our children, will give them the right type of advice. But we want everyone to have the opportunity to pour into the lives of our children.
And I suppose this is where you had mentioned earlier that the community also comes into play.
Yes.
Very important.
Very, very important.
We need to get back to those days.
Where the village raises the child. And that is, we've come away from that, Rhea. We have to get back.
Yeah, we need to get back to that. Now, you've indicated that your ministry will be collaborating with the Ministry of Youth Development and National Service to have the MyLAT program expanded to include girls. Can you give us an update on that?
I want to say kudos to the Prime Minister for singling out the youth and having an entire ministry dedicated to their development. It means that there's a recognition on the part of the Prime Minister that we have to develop our greatest resource, which are our people, and our young people more so. So the MyLAT program has been very successful over the years at reforming young people. And I think it's one of the things that we have to recognize and salute. Now, how does that help us at the Ministry of Education? You would have noticed a couple of videos, and they keep popping up, of school violence. Not that fighting in schools is new, and not that I think we can completely eradicate it, but what is new is that sharing the cell phones. And prior to 2020, when schools closed for COVID-19, cell phones were, in some schools, you couldn't have your cell phone on you. And even though that may be the case in some schools still, phones have now become a part of the educational landscape. So students have their phones in the classroom. They have their phones at lunchtime when, there's less supervision and they can free themselves up. And so they're using it to the greatest advantage. So what's happening is that we are now really getting a sense of what's happening in our schools, and maybe it could be a bit more. Students come back out and the numbers show, based on the data that we collect, that it is a bit more in terms of school and discipline in general, and then of course you have the fighting. So there are some students that are repeat offenders, meaning that you see them every year, multiple times, getting into fights. And so we have a revised school discipline matrix that speaks to not only dealing with the negative behavior, but also positive behavior reinforcement and encouragement. And so we are going to be rolling out a campaign of showing children how you are supposed to behave, because we take it for granted that they know. Some of them do not know. So that's part of it. But there are some students that require more supervision. They require immersion in an environment that is more regimented for their self-development. We have to save them from themselves. And so that is why the discussion between the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Youth Development would have emerged as to reserving a certain part of the MyLAT intake every year so that the Ministry of Education can actually recommend students. That happens informally. But we want a system that outlives us as ministers, and therefore we want to put that into it. So we're discussing that with MyLAT now, and we will take that to Cabinet very soon. But what we are also recognizing, and the public will know because you're seeing it, that our girls are also now a part of the violence that we see at our schools. So we have to have somewhere that we can recommend for the girls who need that. And that is why we've discussed with the Ministry of Youth Development bringing MyLAT for girls. So it's still in the initial stage of discussion, but we really are working towards getting that done because we want to provide the same support. It's not punitive. It is recognizing that our children need support and facilitating that. So we hope that we will be able to get that done sooner rather than later, but we will certainly get it done.
Now, in the past, we've heard that there is, in a sense, a shortage of guidance counselors in schools. And you did mention that part of the program that's coming up with these 26 schools that have been implemented, that this is going to be a part of helping the child, move forward. Has that been addressed, the guidance counselor issue? Because sometimes we find that there's maybe one guidance counselor for so many different schools. And we really need some more in each school, posted at each school. Are there any strides in place for that to happen?
What we are addressing is a system of early referral that would allow us to not reach the point where the student is far gone and requires that personal intervention. Because what we find happening is that every time we increase the number, there's a need for more and more. And we have, between school social workers and guidance counselors, maybe 400 or so personnel, give or take a couple. And what that, as we seek to increase more and more and more, remember it's administration of such a large unit. But what we have realized is that the school-based intervention team, that is a team that's part of the school-based management system that is supposed to meet at every school fortnightly. And that team is supposed to look at the challenges in each class. And if there are students that are having difficulties, it should come up there. That is a team comprised of the school officials, the principals, some teachers, and so on. Now, although the school social workers, the guidance counselors are a part of it, that team is supposed to identify early when you have a problem. And that will allow the intervention. Sometimes it's at the level of the teacher, and it doesn't have to involve the guidance counselor. But when that team is not operating well, then the problem gets so out of hand that it gets now a referral to the guidance counselor, which adds to their workload.
Yeah.
So in addition to ensuring we fill all the vacancies, which I think we are at, maybe a couple that have not been filled, what we are focusing on is ensuring that the school-based intervention team operates efficiently. That way, we can deal with the problems while they are small. There are things that teachers, principals, parents can deal with before it gets referred to the guidance counselor and adds to their workload and exacerbates the shortage, if you want to put it like that.
Minister Gadsby-Dolly, your final thoughts.
I want to assure the public that the Ministry of Education is up to the challenge. This is and has been a very challenging time, but we are doing our best and will continue to do so to move the ministry forward in a very serious way along the digital transformation platform, looking at our curriculum and ensuring that we deliver modern, relevant, quality education to all of our young citizens to create the citizen that will take Trinidad and Tobago on an upward trajectory.
Thank you so much for being with us here once again. Join us again next week, same time, for another episode of Delving Deeper. I am Ria Rupchansing on behalf of the entire team. Thank you so much and have a good night.